How's it going, world? My name is Stephen Barba,
Michael Rushin.
and welcome to the Stephen Special Podcast. This is pretty exciting, really, to be honest with you. This is my very first podcast ever. Um, didn't think about it, and I just thought, what the hell, just do it. So, my first guest is this gentleman right here. And, Mike, you want to take the reins? Or
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on your very first podcast.
Thanks.
I'm very honored to be your first guest. My name is Michael Rushin. I'm a local businessman. Been in Central Arkansas all 52 years of my existence. And we're here at the lovely Albert Pike Scottish Rite Temple downtown on 7th and Scott Street. If you ever want to check it out, it's very easy to tour. We've got some very, very unique works of art. It's a beautiful facility. And what better place to start your podcasting career than here at our home at the Scottish Rite?
So, viewers may be asking yourself, like, why are we doing it at Albert Pike Memorial Temple? I would say both me and Mike are Freemason brothers. And, I'm a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason, and you're
Same thing.
Same thing. And he does a lot of charity work, as well as he does a lot with the DeMolay Freemasons. And Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about
Sure, absolutely. Well, Freemasonry in general is once you become a Master Mason, you're eligible to do anything else, like join the beautiful Scottish Rite. You can do the York Rite. That's more of our Christian Masonry. You mentioned DeMolay. DeMolay is a youth organization that's sponsored by the Masonic bodies. It is for young men between the ages of 12 and 21. In layman's terms, Boy Scouts do their stuff on the campground. DeMolay conducts its business in the boardroom. And I joined that organization in 1986. And in 2010, I was elected the executive officer for Arkansas. And so we work with teenage young men just to help them become future leaders, creative thinkers. We instill in them a sense of civic and charity responsibility and so much more. But yeah, being a Freemason is awesome. The first lesson they taught us when we joined the fraternity is the lesson of charity. That if you see somebody that you can help out, you should help them out. And to go to your point, a few years back, I started doing barbecue and did a little competition barbecue. But nowadays, I spend most of my time doing charitable and civic events. So when Hurricane Helene hit Western North Carolina, my lady Marlene, Michael, and myself, we hooked up the barbecue smoker. We followed Crescent Masonic Lodge out there, who were donating materials for the people of those communities. And we set our barbecue pit up, and we cleaned the freezer out. She made a wonderful gumbo, and it was wild. The people of North Carolina, Western North Carolina, said they had never had gumbo in their lives. So as we say here, they were down in the holler. So we were down at the lower part by the river. And we cooked chili that day. We smoked barbecue all day. I think we fed about 350 people. We had one true hillbilly, I would say, and one real tweaker. And it was a very interesting deal. And they were asking us, they were shocked when they heard that people from Arkansas had come out to North Carolina to help them. And I had made the comment that, we grew up in Tornado Alley, as we call it here. And they had told us, they had never seen that type of disaster in the area before, ever. So they were kind of in shock that they had to go through all that, because who gets hurricanes in North Carolina on the western side? Mm-hmm. Maybe on the eastern side, but not on the western side. And so we did that. When the tornadoes hit north central Arkansas, we drove up to Cushman, a town of 350 people, and then we went up to Melbourne. I believe we distributed 500 meals on that trip. And so if I say anything that Freemasonry's taught us, the lesson of charity is one of the most important things. And that's anything in life. I mean, all of us have talent. All of us have God-given abilities, and it's our responsibility to exercise that talent and ability. Don't be that person when you're 80 years old, sitting on your front porch, regretting the things that you should have done. Look back upon a life well lived and say, you know what, I did the best I could, not just for myself, but for my fellow neighbors.
Of course. See, coming into Freemasonry, I think I got into it 2022, and really I knew a little bit about it, from history books and everything. Like George Washington was a Freemason, and many other presidents were also Freemasons as well. And I thought, no, that was pretty cool. But diving into the whole deal, I thought, really the lessons of charity, lessons of brotherhood, that's really what it's every it's every month. I come here and see my brothers and hang out, and we just talk and just do everything else. So I really enjoy just being a Freemason, and glad you're my brother, man. So
Yeah, me too, buddy. Yeah, one of the things that's really cool about our fraternity, and I've said this many times, is everywhere I go, I meet someone I know. I have been on cruises, I've been in country, out of country, and I mean to tell you, every single time. Now, I might not know that individual personally, but they'll either be a D Malay, they'll be a Mason, they may be a Shriner, they may be whatever, and I'll always run into someone that I know. And one of the neatest things is when I see people travel to Europe or wherever, I say, hey, if you're in Italy, one of my good friends, Luciano Critelli, he runs D Malay in Italy. And so, hey, if you get in a pinch, Luciano will take care of you. And he always likes those comments. And Luciano's so cool. What's so cool about our fraternity? Luciano speaks just Italian. Well, I take that back. He speaks a few languages in Europe.
mm,
I cannot speak Italian to save my life. And every year we're at the D Malay International Session, which is next week in Orlando. Luciano and I will be sitting side by side. Thank God for Google Translate, because now we can actually talk to one another instead of doing hand gestures like, hey, that was good, or no, that's bad. But no, it's a great fraternity. The brotherhood is phenomenal. Freemasonry as we know it today was organized in the 1700s in England. But a lot of our verbiage, a lot of our traditions go back to the days of King Solomon. And if you like history and tradition, this is one of the neatest organizations to be a part of. There's just so much of it that you could spend day upon day studying and learning. And but for me, I keep it simple. One of the, as you know, one of our lessons is friendship, morality, and brotherly love. And I keep it very simple. I come into every lodge meeting with that on my mind. I try to conduct business under that same pretense and depart upon the same. And I tell you what, it's just a beautiful thing when brothers can work together in harmony to become better citizens in their community.
of course, of course. So to my viewers as well, I do want to let you know more about myself and Mike. But another thing that to know about me is that I work alongside with the Republican National Hispanic Assembly. I'm actually the South Central Regional Director. So you may be asking yourself, like, oh, you're a Hispanic and you're a Republican. How can that be? And it's, you know, hey, I love the Republican values and just conservatism all over the place. So if I can help any Hispanic learn about RNHA or the Republican Party. So, Mike, how long have you like been in Arkansas? Like, you know,
Oh, I was born in 1972 at St. Vincent's Hospital just down the road, and graduated from Mills High School in 1990, where I met my future wife and mother of my children, Renee Rushin. Unfortunately, we lost her in 2014 to breast cancer at the ripe old age of 42. And that was a really hard time. It took me about a year and a half to get through the fog of that depression of losing someone who was absolutely the love of your life. We were total opposites, but we were a perfect fit.
of course.
And one of my brothers in the shrine I didn't know had lost his child to cancer. And I asked him, I said, I can't imagine one of my kids dying before me. How did you get through that? And he said, Mike, I just look at it as God gave her bonus early, and I'm still here trying to earn it. And that little phrase right there helped me push through to the other side to realize there's still life to live. I still have kids to raise. I still have positive things I can do, because Renee already punched her ticket to heaven. She's up there enjoying vacation. And I'm down here still trying to be a better man. And the one nice thing is that she domesticated me. I went from being just a sloppy old guy to being organized and a clean house and a decent cook. And so, yeah, I was very blessed. And so I went off to college. I was going to go to Florida State. I fell in love with the football program in the 80s. They were on CBS, and They were playing some team called Southern Mississippi. They had a quarterback named Brett Favre. I'm not sure how his career went, but anyways, the Florida State people, when the football team got the ball on the 20-yard line, they started that Seminole chant, and they did not quit until they scored a touchdown. And I was hypnotized. I'm going there, going there, going there. Well, in my senior year at high school, Rhodes College up in Memphis, Tennessee, started recruiting me to play football, Division III. Now, Division III, there's no athletic scholarships, but it was an opportunity to continue playing football. And so I went to Rhodes College, graduated there from '94. I ended up not playing football at Rhodes my senior year. Actually, the day before Renee and I went on our first date, we were Mills High School was playing Pine Bluff at Mills High School. Huge game, huge game. They had a player down there named Basil Shabazz, was one of the most amazing athletes I'd ever seen in my life. In fact, the next year, Pine Bluff played Texarkana in the championship game at War Memorial. I believe Basil had 5 touchdowns. He might have had a couple hundred yards rushing. It was amazing to watch him play. A phenomenal athlete. But anyways, that night, we think in the second quarter, I took a hard hit to the head, and I don't remember much of the game after that, but I did play the whole time. I played offensive center, so I was in the middle of the field, and this is one of my there's a God moments. Mm-hmm. The next day after I was at the hospital and finally had my brain working again, the doctor showed me a scan who said my brainstem had shifted. And he said, young man, if you take another hit to the head, pick it, paralysis or death. Sure. So if you watch the video, nowadays you have to have a VHS to watch it, but when you watch the video back then, during the whole second half of that football game, I'd snap the ball, walk around, and not a single person touched me. God was watching out for me that day because he had more things for me to do. And so that finished my football career. Like I said, went to Rhodes College, graduated in '94. When I came back, I had no ambitions of working with my dad. He had the Mike Rushin Company Incorporated. He was doing real estate sales and property management. He had helped his parents, Stan and Jean Rushin, build Rushin Upholstery Supply, which is still in business today. My grandparents are passed on, and they did sell the business, but they did keep the name. But my dad was the traveling salesman during the years I was growing up. And so he actually started the real estate company when I was a sophomore at Rhodes College. And so we had went from there, and I said, well, maybe it'll work, maybe not. They had a falling out in the 80s. Sometimes family businesses can wear you out. 30 years later, I'm still here now, own the business, and we call it Rushin Home Real Estate. And so, like I said, I am born and bred in Central Arkansas, and I don't believe I'm going anywhere anytime soon.
Oh, okay. Well, man, me and you are both Arkansans at heart. I was born and raised in Fort Smith. Shout out to Fort Smith. So, no, it was born in '95, and my dad, who is a businessman, owns a lot of Mexican restaurants in Northwest Arkansas, and I think other places too as well. Kind of the reason why it's called the Steven Special Podcast is one of his famous dishes is called the Steven Special. I made it, of course, but just chicken, rice, and cheese dip. Lived in Fort Smith, I want to say at least really 10 or 11 years, and then, moved to Tennessee with my mom and graduated from Lipscomb University. And, I always had a desire to just be in politics. I don't know why. You just have that itch inside of you that
Sure,
just you want to
absolutely.
scratch. So, I actually got a opportunity working for Diane Black, who was running for governor of Tennessee. Oh, Lord, this has been, 2017, 2018, around that time. And
you act like that was a long time ago. You were born the year I got out of college. Come on, man. Woo! I'm feeling old about myself.
Well, hey. But no, it was, I worked alongside her, helped her gain some traction. Unfortunately, she lost to Bill Lee. But, then I got really good opportunity working in the Missouri Republicans, door knocking over there. Helped Josh Hawley really win his campaign and everything else. So, you know, then my dad decided to say, you need to come back to Fort Smith, really, be part of the business, family business, and
So he named that dish after you so you come home?
yeah,
Is that what he did?
I think so.
I'm going to name a dish after your son so you come home back home. That's
Oh,
awesome.
yeah. So, no, I actually did like a little bit of a stint to work at my dad's restaurant as a waiter. When I say I was awful as a waiter, I mean it. I was pure awful, man. Forgetting orders or, I don't know how people can do it. Like you just carry 5 or 6 different plates in your hands and you're like, you know, you automatically think, I can do it. I can do it. But then when you do like maybe one or two, your arm goes like really numb and you're just like, nope.
Spaghetti arm.
Yeah. So I wasn't the best at it, but, learning the family business, it really just taught me that, well, for one thing, it's not my calling. It wasn't really my calling on that. And really working with family, in my opinion, is very hard to do. But no, La Huerta, that's the name of the restaurant, is thriving. Hell, if you want to go eat at La Huerta, go ahead. It's not a sponsorship. My dad does not know that I'm doing this. So, hey, go out there and get yourself a Steven special. Tell them that I sent you.
And
So,
the bad waiter's not there anymore, so you're good, right?
yeah.
They got good staff, right? You're here talking to me and they got good staff. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. But it's also funny, too, to think about it. There's other Mexican restaurants here in Central Arkansas that have my dish, but they name it different things. I always go to those Mexican restaurants and just sitting there just saying to myself, do I want to tell them that I created this or
Right.
just blow their minds? No. I mean, it was it's just very surreal, I guess you could say.
I tell you, years ago, I was able to sample some authentic Mexican dishes. Our company had partnered up with a corporation here in Little Rock, and they would bring up seasonal workers from Mexico.
Mhm.
And we housed them in a bunch of apartments in South Little Rock. And so I'd go out there, walk on the street, make sure everybody was took care of. And there would always be a lovely Hispanic lady in there just cooking up a storm. And she'd holler at me, and I'd come in there and she'd feed me. And woo, I tell you what, it was phenomenal. And just great, hardworking people. I mean, I got really immersed in in the Hispanic culture out there, just hanging out with everybody. Because, like I said, they were freshly up from Mexico. So it wasn't like they were living in Arkansas for 30 years. And then,
Yeah.
those are people that were straight from Mexico. And I really got a chance to meet with them and see their work ethic and how they took care of their families. And it was very impressive to see. And that was because the running joke I had at the time was I took 4 years of French between between high school and college. And I tell you what, those 4 years paid off. But it was really an eye-opening experience getting to see those good folks and talk about what they were doing, and of course get to eat their phenomenal food. So it was great.
I always go back to Fort Smith every once in a while, and obviously getting to eat La Huerta for free, that's a perk. But no, just eating really just good food and being with the family, and seeing how much they really do work hard and stuff. I'm actually going this weekend back to Fort Smith, so it's always fun to go back.
But you're not going to wait the tables, right?
No.
All right, let the professionals do that. Just let the professionals do that.
Oh yeah, I hung up my apron years ago on that one. So, just a little bit about ourselves. That was, but Mike, I just wanted to, bring you on as somebody that you've done a lot of business here in Little Rock. You know Little Rock better than I do. I've been here for what, really, 2.5? Yeah, almost 2.5 years. So, in your honest opinion, like, what do you feel that Little Rock could change or get better at, you know?
Well, it's always a tough draw trying to get a balanced society. When it comes down to it, it comes down, in my opinion, to the family unit. If you're going to have safe streets and all these other good things, it starts at home. Your moms and dads raising their kids, teach them good discipline, how to respect other people, because we live in a very fractious society. There's people that are very, unfortunately, I believe that the extremism in our country is what really leads to a lot of our problems. Those who are extreme left or extreme right. And what we need is a healthy dose of moderation. And but with our cities, I think if you still have sustainable growth, services that will help your fellow man, but each person who's able-bodied needs to be out working. They need to be out earning for their family, good old-fashioned values. And but you need to have safe streets, good roads, clean water, all those fundamental things. That doesn't know political party. It doesn't know anything. We're citizens of Little Rock. We're citizens of Pulaski County. We're Arkansans. We're Americans. But the thing we are that nobody can deny is we're human beings. And we have to respect one another. We have to work together to make a harmonious society. And it's never going to be a rainbow and fairy tale and all that stuff. It just is what it is.
Right.
We as leaders in the community are never going to make decisions that everybody agrees with. But what we can strive to do is listen to those around us, put together a good plan to try to satisfy as many people as possible in whatever endeavor it may be, whether it be something to be charitable or how do we do taxes or whatever. We need to use logic. We need to use our education, and we need to work together as Arkansans to better our communities across the state.
Of course. Well said. Well said. No, I mean, in all seriousness, when I moved down here, I've had so many people that tell me like Little Rock is so dangerous. You just got to watch yourself. You got to be on your six, and every time, like just you know, always looking around. But I'll be honest, it's been a very wholesome place to live in. You know, uh, sure, I can say for a fact rent, especially in some places, are a little bit out of control, but you know overall, I haven't seen a lot of violent things going on here in Little Rock. So, but what you said was great.
Well, when the year you were born, 1995, it was it was an interesting time. We had a lot of issues with gang violence and so forth in the communities. In fact, our business, we had to work with local police and fire and city and to clean up some neighborhoods that were really doing poorly because some bad actors had moved into town and were trying to take them over. And we were very successful in getting those places safe for people to live. And but yeah, Little Rock's a great town. You always see stories sometimes that say how great Little Rock is and how dangerous it is. I agree with you. I mean, I've been all over. I have in my rental business, I have a very diverse socioeconomic group, and I've got people paying $400 a month to $4,000 a month, and everything in between. And not a single street that I've ever gone on have I ever been concerned. And even when we're dealing with the gang problem in the '90s, never carried a firearm, never needed to. We always treated people firm, but we treated them fair. And my dad used to have a slogan that the only color we see is green. We don't judge people by the color of their skin. We judge them by the content of their character. And if you're a good human being and you do things right, life is easy. It's like in my rental business, I've got a 6-page contract. But when it comes down to it, I tell every single person that rents from me, listen, pay your rent on time. Don't blow up the unit. Don't bug the neighbors. And everything else falls in line.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a great place to live. I would have no qualms recommending to any of my friends from out of state moving here. So yeah, Little Rock's phenomenal.
Of course. See the limelight, especially the music here. Downtown really was the last night I went out to eat La Chingada. It was a good time. Walking through the streets and just feeling safe. That's all that I can say about it. So Mike, what do you feel like your future holds?
Well, like I said, born and raised here in Central Arkansas and have no plans to go anywhere. For years, I've done a lot of leadership in nonprofit organizations, from Shriners Hospitals for Children, president of the Shriners of Arkansas, so forth and so on. And my friends and family have asked me for years, when was I ever going to step up to the next level? And so, like I said, I'm 52 years old. I figure if I'm going to get to working, I better get going. So I'm seriously considering a run for public office in 2026. I want to take the 30 years of experience I have as a businessman, as a charitable person, working in various levels of society, all the way from local government to state government to the federal level, all the way internationally. I used to serve on the board of directors for a multinational nonprofit corporation called DMLA International. And so I'm very well versed in how to be a creative thinker, how to be a problem solver, how to analyze situations and make sure we're running things efficiently and not wasting tax dollars. I went to a quorum court meeting last month, first one I'd ever been to. And there was a thing talking about the Pulaski County Jail. And there was a company there they were talking to that was going to charge $400,000 to assess the roof on the prison. But then he kept saying, the person from the architecture firm kept saying, well, the jail was not built properly. The foundation's not real great. So it makes the walls shift and compromises the roof.
Mm.
Now, I've never been a builder, but I've been around enough to know that your foundation is the most important thing in your property. So my thought was, and to give them the benefit of the doubt, I don't know anything before that meeting, so this may have already been addressed. But my first initial thought was, have we assessed the foundation? Can it be shored up? Because in my mind, if you're going to spend $400 to assess it, you're probably spending $2 to $3 million to put it on. And if your real issue is the foundation's bad, the walls shift, well, what you're doing now is you're paying for a $3 million Band-Aid to put a roof on a building that's not going to hold right. So again, give them the benefit of the doubt. This may have already been addressed. It was one meeting that I've been to. But just things like those, I'm like, I can solve these problems. I can think to work with the people on those committees. Are we spending our tax dollars properly? Because I don't believe in raising taxes. Every couple of years, like let's say your county will assess your property. I would advise your viewers always watch those assessments, because the ones I get sometimes are a little bit high. And you can always call down there and ask for an appeal. They're not going to be ugly about it. And what you need to do is just have your empirical data that shows what you think the value of your property is. And every time I've been able to negotiate just through communication to get a lower assessment based on actual dollars, not just whatever formula they were using. It's kind of like one of the apps out there for real estate, Zillow. Here in Central Arkansas, I don't know about other places. I tell people, don't use the Z estimator. I have seen it give such inflated numbers. Give you a perfect example. I had a house that I was managing in a very well-to-do neighborhood over in West Little Rock. And the owner of the house had saw on Zillow his house was worth $600,000. And the person that was renting it at the time said, I'd like to buy it. So I asked the owner. He said, hey, I want $600,000. I'm like, whoa, where'd you get that number? No, excuse me, $500,000. Let me get this right, $500,000. I'm thinking to myself, where did you get this number? Well, the estimator on Zillow told me it was worth that. I sent that gentleman 18 sales comps on that street, similar houses. Nothing over $400,000 ever sold on that property. He wanted $500 based on Zillow. So I told him that, and he goes, okay, I'll take $469. So I called the tenant and I said, hey, I'll take $469. And of course, the tenant knew the data as well because it's all public disclosure. And he had a few choice words. I called the seller back. I said, well, he has politely declined your offer of $469. But no, anyways, I think it's time for me to take a step in the right direction to see if I can take all these years of experience across the board and really do some good in the community, because I want to be one of those people that when he's 80 years old, sitting on his front porch and thinking about his life, that he tried to do the best he can. Because let's be honest, we're all going to go to our grave someday.
Of course.
The only thing you're taking to that grave is your respect. Doesn't matter how rich or poor you are. Doesn't matter what kind of fancy house you lived in or if you were in an apartment. How you live your life is going to echo through eternity. And it's just nothing else about that. I just can't say it any clearer than that. Maximize your God-given abilities to do the best you can, not only for your family, but for your fellow citizen.
I feel like I can get more people involved, interview wise. To doesn't have to be political. It can be other people too.
Could be 100
Um,
things you could talk about.
of course, yeah. And you know, having you on this as my first, I hope that this blows up and we get a lot of views. So Mike, I mean, any any more you want to tell my viewers?
Hey,
Or?
I just appreciate the opportunity to be here, to be the first person on your podcast. I know that you probably felt that was a safe bet because we know each other so well. But I know some of our brothers would be like, "What were you thinking putting that loudmouth on your first podcast? Did you get a chance to talk, Stephen?" And but no, this has been a great honor to do this. I really appreciate you having me on here to be your very first interview, and I do know that this will do well. And I know you have a love and a passion, not only for conservative politics but for your heritage. And I think that anything we can do to make our fellow citizens feel more part of our community is a very wise thing to do. Because, like I said, when we were doing business 20-something years ago with those good folks from Mexico who were coming to work,
Mm-hmm.
I could tell they didn't feel part of the community. You could just feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did everything we could to work with them to make them feel welcome. And granted, they were here on a temporary visa for seasonal work. They were working at one time Deluxe Videos, where Caterpillar is now in North Little Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the old VHS days, they bring them in and work the factory the whole 9 yards. But anything you can do to make people feel more a part of this community, I think, is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're going to do a great job with this podcast, and you're going to bring on a very diverse group of people to talk about issues and everything from fun stuff to serious items. And I think as you grow and take more ownership of this podcast, I really believe you're going to make a big difference in this community in a very positive way.
Man, I thank you for those words, man. I do. And just so you know, I've actually got plans to go not just here, but to New York City in September.
New York City.
Oh yeah, gonna be.
You might be too young for that. That was an old Pace commercial. Pace. Yeah, that was an old Pace commercial.
Well, I'll just be over there doing a lot of what we're doing, and
Right.
just interviewing people off the streets and getting immersed in that culture. Then next month I am going to Nashville.
I'll tell you what you need to do next week is come to Orlando for the Demon International session. I'll hook you up. You can podcast, your eyeballs fall out. Then we'll go up north to where my mother lives in Ocala. We'll go by the horse track there where the sales are going on right now, and we'll see multi-million-dollar jets, people spending thousands and thousands of dollars on the next Kentucky Derby hopeful. Oh, we can take you we'll just go on a road trip. That's what we'll do. Honey, we're going to take him on a road trip. We'll just stop all the way along down to Orlando, and we'll interview everybody.
Why not?
Why not?
But no, Mike, I want to thank you for this opportunity, man.
Absolutely.
It has been a pleasure, and thank you so much, man.
All right, brother. Good luck to you, baby.
Thank you.